Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the On Mission podcast today. And I'm so glad that you are here and excited to jump into our time together today and helping you to live a life of clarity in your leadership and even in your personal life, in your relationships, your marriage, your family, and that you can live a life of clarity. So, I want to ask you something as we begin our time together is this question. When was the last time you actually stopped and thought about your life on purpose? Now, not reacted. I'm not talking about scrolling but not pushing through, but literally just stopped and reflected. Because what if the reason that you feel stuck in your life is simply because you're not pausing in your life? Or what if you're not seeing growth in yourself or even your team and you think, "Man, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my team?" It's simply because you're not stopping and pausing. Or perhaps you think, you know, "Why am I not seeing development in my team or in my kids, in my relationships?" It could be because you're not pausing to reflect. Over the last few weeks, I've been thinking about this idea of reflection in our lives. And honestly, I believe that reflection is one of the most underrated things or practices or habits that a leader can actually do. And when you think about the idea of just stopping and pausing, quiet, solemn, and just thinking on what's happened, where you're at, and where you are going. Because I honestly believe that most people are not lacking effort in their life, in their business. They're lacking this idea of reflection, and reflection can bring clarity. So, when we think about this idea of reflection, I just want to clarify like what we're meaning by that is because I think some people can think of reflection as it's living in the past. Oh, this was the good old days, like, and that's not what I'm meaning at all. I'm talking about an honest moment when you just stop and it's like looking in the mirror and seeing, okay, what's actually happening when I put the mirror on my team, what's happening when I put the mirror on my life, when I put the mirror on my relationships, what do I see? Because it's easy to live our lives with our calendars packed, our schedules so full, and when we do have time to breathe, so to speak, we're sitting around scrolling on our phones or looking for the next deal and not just reflecting. And so I want to share with you today like three things that I have benefited from when I just simply pause in my life and reflect. This idea of practicing reflection in our lives. And so the first thing is simply this. When I stop and have a time of reflection in my life, it actually reveals patterns that I would not otherwise see. I start to see what is showing up consistently in my life. Whether it's the same frustrations, whether it's the same decisions, it's the same outcomes, and once you begin to see this pattern, then it's like you can't unsee it. It's there. And so it's seeing the patterns of even of distractions in my life. I've had this over the last few weeks and a lot of different things going on in life, and it's easily to get distracted. For some, it's maybe easy them just to focus and barrel down, but hey, raw authentic moment here. It's like I can be easily distracted on, oh, let's go do this or let's go do that thing, or that's a great idea. I want to research that. And this can play out so many ways in our life. And in your business is you see the next shiny object, so to speak. Like you see the next opportunity, man, let's go do this. No, but I'm just getting distracted. And it's simply because I'm not pausing and practicing this idea of reflection. Once again, like I said, I believe it's a most underrated practice in our lives for leaders and just for really for everybody. Because another reason why I like to practice this reflection and it reveals patterns is I can see the various rhythms that are not aligned in my life. And for instance, if you are consistently tired, it's like, okay, let me pause and reflect. Okay, well, how am I getting to bed? What's my sleep schedule like? And those different things. You may say that sounds crazy. It all plays a part in this. And so that pattern or the rhythms of our life or the lack of habits in our life, whatever it may be, it's like when we pause to reflect, this idea of reflection, it is going to reveal these patterns in your life. And that can be very, very daunting. It can be very challenging, but then it's also gives you the ability to know, okay, this is what I need to do next. So why I like this idea of reflection, because reflection brings clarity because it reveals the patterns in my life and the things that I need to work on. Because once again, reflection is looking back. Okay, I see what's happened. I see the behavior. I see the outcomes that's happened in the past to where I'm at today. If I don't like where I'm at today, I gotta pause and reflect upon it. Okay, why? So I look back to see what has led me to this place. Then that reveals what I need to do next to be able to change it. So the first thing is simply that is reflection reveals patterns. A second thing is simply this. Reflection has a way of resetting your mind because most of people, they're leading, they're building, they're working, they're trying to provide for the family, they're trying to keep the home nice, and it's a noisy world out there, but which can also lead to having a noisy mind. And when I stop and pause in my life to have this time of reflection, I can then see that, okay, there's a lot of good that has happened because in the day-to-day grind of everything and in the noisy world, sometimes we can be led to believe that, man, I may not be a good leader. I'm not a good parent. I'm not a good spouse. And because we are caught up in all this noisiness of our life and the busyness, then we're not listening to the right voices. And the negative voices, if we don't pause to reflect, will drown out everything else. But when we pause to reflect, we'll be like, okay, wow, things may not be as bad as I thought they were. And I can see the good that has happened. I can see the growth that has happened. I can see the change that has happened in our team. Because if you are constantly practicing this idea of reflection, you will see the difference. Like if somebody tells you that, and they sit down and talk to you like, man, you've changed so much since we last talked, and maybe that was a few months or a year ago. And it's like, well, that's a great compliment. Why? It means because you are evolving, you're growing, and not staying stagnant and living a life of just comfort and ease and a fixed mindset. So this idea of practicing reflection, it reveals patterns in our lives, but then it can also just reset our mind. And in that time of reflection, whether and there's different ways, you got to figure out what the best way to practice this is. But you can also see the good that is happening around you. And yes, there may be a lot of fires you're putting out on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of conflict resolution you have to deal with, whether that's with the family or whether that's in your team at work or with your business. And it's like, man, good things are still happening. That's not to have a blind optimism, but understanding that, hey, there is good that has happened and resetting your mind. So I like to pause to reflect. Why? To reveal some patterns in my life. And so I don't remain stuck. And then also to simply reset the mind. Now, the third and final thing is very simple. This is simple here, and that is when I pause to reflect, or when I practice reflection, then it also helps me to narrow my focus. And what I mean by this is I stop chasing everything. It's like, oh, that could be a cool thing to do. Let's go do that. No, I'm going to focus on the plan, the strategy that where we are headed here, and not get distracted, but and keep my focus where it should be. Because it's easy to focus on all the noise around you. It's easy to focus on all the opportunities. But when you pause to reflect and practice reflection, it brings this clarity of just keeping you focused on what actually matters. And for me, it helps me to understand, what do I need to do next? And what do I need to do tomorrow? What do I need to do the next day or the next week? And by pausing and practicing this idea of reflection, it brings that clarity for me of just knowing that this is what I do and what I need to do. Just the other night, I could not sleep. And uh, so I was up and up late, and the house was quiet, and I'm like, my mind is racing. I'm like, I can't lay. I lay down, try to sleep, couldn't. And so I get up and I go to the kitchen table and just take out a blank piece of paper and just began writing everything down. And it was amazing in that moment. And I carry the papers with me right here. And it is that it helped me to narrow my focus. It's like, oh, I can get so distracted by these other things around, by the noise out there, and that is happening in the world. And it's like, no, it helped me just to narrow my focus and like, okay, this is what I gotta do. This is what I gotta do next. And that's what this idea of reflection does for me. It helps me to narrow that focus. So here's the thing that most people miss, though. If you don't take time for reflection, you won't recognize what you're reflecting. See, as a leader, you're always reflecting something. And if we don't pause as leaders to practice this idea of reflection, what are our priorities? What when we're operating under pressure, what's our mindset? What are we reflecting to those around us? I know that's a little bit of a play on words, because this idea of reflection is, yes, it's like the thing, it's the outcome, it's the state that we do. But then there's also like an action to this, a verb tense, so to speak, in that, what am I reflecting? Because how I'm operating under the stress, people are watching, whether it's your kids, your spouse, or your team, and you are reflecting something. So there you have it, folks. Just some real raw things about this idea of reflection that I've been been reflecting on over the last few weeks, and a lot of different things happening in life. Because reflection brings clarity. Reflection will bring clarity if you will take the time to pause and just reflect. And now you may say, well, what do I do in this time of reflection? Well, there's different things. You can journal, you can write, you, and so you got to do you. All right. And so in those times of reflection, maybe it's just doing a brain dump and taking a piece of paper and writing everything down. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's putting things in your phone and reminders. But practicing this idea of reflection. Where have I been to where I am now? And is this aligned to where I want to be? And the way to be able to understand and to know that for sure is by practicing reflection. Thank you for joining me on today's edition of the On Mission Podcast. We'll see you next time.